On this week's video, we'll be going over some more ways of bringing the outdoors into your classroom or home in the form of an educational animal, or aka a classroom pet. We'll be going over some different activities you can do of incorporating this animal into learning in your classroom or your home. So, let's get started. Number 1, learning responsibility. When you have an animal, there's a lot of different things that will need to be done so that the animal is properly taken care of, as we've talked about in previous videos. And you as the adult, you don't have to be the only one doing these things. You can also have your kids help out, whether it's giving the animal its food, its water, cleaning up after its waste. All of these are things that your kids can help with depending on what the animal is and how comfortable you are having them having those interactions with the animal. As well as learning responsibility, learning about the actual care of an animal, and learning zookeeper skills, maybe for someday if that's something that interests them. As well as you can have your kids take daily health notes and behavior notes about the animal for how it is doing, so that they can practice keeping a log of observations that they could use even potentially in the future as something to reference if your animal all of a sudden starts acting a little unusual. Number 2, needs and proper care. You can use your animal as an example in your classroom for the difference between needs and wants, as well as all the major things that all living things need to survive. Your students can even go a step beyond this and do research into what the things are that your animal needs to survive and put them into a care sheet or even a comprehensive care document, depending on the age of your students and the type of animal you have. But this document should include things like food, water, enclosure, and maybe even things like enrichment. Number 3, learning engineering. Your students can learn engineering skills through designing the tank or enclosure layout for your animal, as well as for designing different enrichment toys for the animal so that they can stay active and healthy in their enclosure or when they're out and about in the classroom. You might have come across enrichment when you were doing some research about your animal for proper care, and enrichment basically is anything that helps keep your animal stimulated mentally or physically. So this can be toys, it can be devices, it can be feeding mechanisms, whatever it may be. It's something that helps your animals stay happy, healthy, and active mentally and physically. Yes, indubitably. Number 4, creative writing. You can use your animal as a prompt for different writing projects or just journaling days with your students. You can have them write about how the animal currently sees the world, what a perfect day for that animal would be, what that animal would do if it ever got loose, whatever it may be. Let your kids' minds run wild while they practice their writing skills. Number 5, science and history reports. Depending on the species of animal you have, your students can write up reports about its science and the history of its domestication process. Otherwise, you can use your animal as a good lead-in for all the other different animal species out there and their science and history of being domesticated. Students can learn good skills about doing research, about writing about history and science, as well as how to write up a report. So there's a lot of different cross-curricular learning that you can do for this activity. Number 6, biology and genetics. Students can learn about how animals are sorted into different groups based on the characteristics that they have. And you can learn about which groups your animal belongs to based on its characteristics. These characteristics are things like, does the animal have hair, scales, feathers? Does it lay eggs? Is it warm-blooded? You get the idea. Number 7, ethical animal research. Your students can learn about the world of psychology through the different experiments that have been done on people and animals through the years, as well as what makes an experiment an ethical one. Depending then on the age of your students and the species of animal you have, they can then maybe conduct their own experiments, making sure that the animal is being safe and not in immediate danger. Don't be worried that your animal is too small or it wouldn't possibly work for doing behavior research with it, because over the years I've seen people do behavior research with things as small as crickets and goldfish even. So maybe your animal might work for it and maybe it might not. But even then, some basic things that you can log and keep track of to do as part of a behavior study is just comparing how the animal acts in different environments. You can have your students log the animal's behavior when it's in its tank, when it's running around in the classroom, maybe when it's in the grass outside, maybe when it's in an enrichment box, how it interacts with different enrichment materials, Whatever it may be, your students should be able to just log the behavior of the animal without having to come up with a very complicated experiment, like having your animal run through a maze looking for bugs or whatever their food is they like. Number 8 is art. Depending on what animal it is you have, you could potentially have them walk through animal-safe paint and then let them walk around on a bunch of pieces of paper, leaving little footprints behind that your students can then use for an art project. What is really great about this kind of art that you can look up with your students is a lot of different nature centers and zoos around the world do this kind of art to sell it or even to auction it off so that they can raise funds for their animals or their facilities to keep everything running smoothly, which is really cool and really awesome and something to look up to show your students that, hey, even animals make art. Number 9 is art and anatomy. Another great cross-curricular activity to do with your kids is having them take a picture or even draw a picture of the animal and then properly labeling its different body parts. They can also go a step farther and draw another picture of a different animal or a picture of a human and then compare and contrast what body parts the animal has and which body parts the human has. And finally, number 10, ecology. Your students can learn about the ecosystem that your classroom animal would be found in if it was living out in the wild. They can learn about things like the food chain it would have belonged to and what role it would have played in that food chain, as well as they can learn about some of the threats that ecosystem faces to this day. Things like deforestation, droughts, pollution, and a lot of the different negative ways that people are impacting these different ecosystems and the animals and the people that live in those areas. You can go even a step further as well by empowering your students with different things that they can do to help out that ecosystem that they are studying about. Whether it's things like trying to not get trash in our oceans, or maybe it's learning about and trying to not use so much palm oil so that they're not supporting the deforestation of rainforests. Whatever it may be, I highly recommend that you have these kinds of conversations with your students so that they can learn more about how the world is interconnected and that they can even have a positive impact and be empowered to do so. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. So if you liked today's video, make sure to like it, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to ring that little bell button. That way you can be notified the second my videos are up on YouTube to help you and your kids get outdoors. As always, if you have more questions about teaching with education animals or taking your kids outdoors, go ahead and leave them in the comments below and I'll answer them as best as I can. And if you're still looking for more resources for education animals or taking your kids outdoors, go ahead and click the description. I have links to videos that I've done on educational animals in the past, as well as there's a link to my monthly newsletter that you can join to receive monthly free resources for getting outdoors and many other things. This month's theme is grants and giveaways, so I'd check that one out if I was you. I also have other social media accounts. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and a blog, so click the description for links to those as well so that you can find tons and tons of more resources to help you and your kids get outdoors. So as always, I hope you all have a fantastic week. You be safe, learn lots, have fun, and get outdoors. Bye! Moose, da moose, swimming in the water, da moose, eating his supper.